Hey everybody, I got me a new vehicle here today. I'm going to do an unboxing for you. I know this is a little bit late since this has already been out a little bit, but I finally got a hold of one for me, so I'm kind of excited about it. And it's rare that I actually get a box for a specific vehicle. Normally when I order stuff, it's got a whole bunch of stuff in it. It's in a great big box and mixed in with a bunch of other stuff. So to actually have a vehicle by itself is kind of a rarity for me. And this just fits perfectly in here too. There we go. Twin hammers. I've been waiting to get a hold of one of these. Every time I go to get one, I end up selling the thing before I even have a chance to do anything with it. So now it's my turn, finally. So anyway, we've got the twin hammers here. Pull this out of the box here. It's kind of a unique shaped box with the down angle there. That's kind of cool. Set that aside for a second. Very tight packaging. They've stuffed this right in the car, or in the box there. Radio on one side, and I'm sure all the paperwork and charger and battery and everything are on the other here. We're going to take a look at this. Take the radio side off. Pull those off. Awesome. Pretty cool. But what I want to do is actually, now that we've got this thing out of the box, I want to work on it a little bit with you here. Go over some of the things that I think about this vehicle, and to do that I'm going to cut and get in close. So, alright, we've got the twin hammers out here. I figure what we ought to do, let's start at the bottom and just talk about the car. Starting up front, we've got independent suspension with solid A-arms. It's not too common to see a solid A-arm like that, but it's very slippery. It should slide over the rocks very, very well. Again, independent suspension. You have also an open differential from the factory here. So if you're looking for serious crawling, you may want to get the optional front locker to lock these up. It's going to make it a lot better crawler if that's the majority of the running you're seeing for this car. We've got a smooth pan type chassis here. This should slide very well over obstacles. Moving to the back, we've got a solid axle with a 4-link suspension system, long travel shocks. This has quite a bit of travel, if you can tell. I mean, from just being in the air, it really has a lot of travel. I like that. It's very, very scale. These buggies that have the solid rear axle like that, desert racers, they have a lot of travel. So, I mean, it's got a lot of articulation as well. I mean, a lot of flex just in that rear axle. That should help with the crawling ability, but that's going to hurt the handling of this vehicle if you're running more high-speed trails, racetrack type situations. You're going to get an area where you go into a corner, it's going to lift that tire as it rolls from side to side on the back axle. So be aware of that. It's not going to be the best handling buggy out there, four-wheel drive buggy. If you're looking for high-speed maneuverability and handling, you're probably going to want to pony up the money for an EXO. It is going to out-handle this car, but an EXO, you know, this is a unique vehicle. It really is, and it kind of offers areas or benefits of both areas of RC. High-speed performance and crawling ability. The back axle locked. That is a locked diff. Typical drive shaft here in the center. Pretty nice. Shocks. The shocks here, we've got an aluminum shock set, aluminum body, aluminum cap. Something I haven't seen in a long time, we've got the old style spring clips here. And you know, I haven't seen those since the early days when I was racing my RC10s and the low-C buggies like the JRX and the I guess it would into the double X era, the old adjustable clip. Nowadays, you know, you've got the multi-pieces that you just pop in and they stack on top of each other to increase the spring rates. This one, you actually undo a little nut and move the clamp down and then tighten it back down. So that's interesting to see those again. Smooth suspension arms. It's going to slide well over obstacles. And it looks like a pretty durable design. I think these arms are going to hold up very well. And I'm sure they've already got aftermarket options for you if you do want aluminum links. But I'm thinking these plastic ones are going to work pretty well. Let's talk about the tires before we take the cage off. 1.9 inch wheels, typical crawler size, and I do like the feel of these foams. They feel fairly firm. It looks to me like it's going to give it pretty good support. They may even be borderline too stiff. I don't know. It might just take some time to break those in and run this buggy quite a bit and see how they fare. The tires themselves are very grippy. They feel nice. They're open, fairly open anyway, and they're pretty sticky rubber. So they feel like actually they'd be a pretty decent tire to put on a SCX10. If you're looking for an alternative tire option, that's not too bad, really. Functional beadlock wheels. This is a plastic ring though, but you can take these apart. So if you were gonna, you know, use this on a different vehicle, I'm sure it's 12mm hex behind that. Yep. You could use that on something else if you wanted, maybe a different wheel for a SCX10 build or something, if you wanted to change them out off of this. I don't know that I would. I think it looks great. This is not bad, I'll tell you. They've done a pretty good job with this car. So maybe we ought to talk about the battery before I take this cage off and get in underneath. The battery pack they give you is a 2000 milliamp. It's a dynamite speed pack. Odd size. This is more of an 18th scale or 16th scale battery pack. Interesting inclusion for a 10th scale car. But, you know, when you get looking at this thing, there's not a lot of room. In fact, their tray here, they've got a tray back here that allows you to put the battery pack. It runs lengthwise. As you can see, the strap there is to hold that in. That battery runs lengthwise. I'm going to stick this in really quick. Actually, what I should do is I'll just get that out of the way and continue talking about that. You'll notice though that it's designed to accept something sideways. This does not fit that direction. It's wider and it just so happens to be the size of a mini pack for like a Team Low C22. From the Jeep video, you'll probably recall I told you I had an ulterior motive for buying this battery. Just so happens to be this car, as this fits. If I can get it in there, there we go. Perfectly in that tray. Clean. And that's going to give a lot more run time. So those batteries, you know, I mean, they vary in sizes. I think you can get them up to 5,000 milliamp now in the small size for the low-C cars. These ones were fairly inexpensive. Yeah, pretty decent batteries. Reedy makes good stuff, so I decided to pick that up and use it in multiple vehicles. It's going to live really well in this buggy. Keep in mind, the charger they give you, and I haven't opened this yet. I guess I probably should do that. Let's tear this open. This charger comes with this car as well. They give you everything you need in the package to run this, including double A's for the remote. But this charger is going to be a small 2 or 3 cell charger, and what it's going to do is simply it's going to plug into power. They've got a power lead here. You plug it into the wall, and then you simply plug your balance lead from your battery into the 2 cell port. Then these lights are going to light up probably red to indicate that it's charging for cell number 1. I'm going to get my fingers out of the way. Cell number 1 and cell number 2 are going to light up red. When the individual cells are fully charged, this charger is going to sense that and they're going to go green, indicating the pack is charged. If you happen to see one light red and one light green, it's not done yet. It's still charging one cell. So you kind of wait for both of them to go green. And incidentally, cell number 3, obviously when you plug in a 2 cell battery, that's just going to stay green. So you do have the option of charging some small 3 cell batteries as well. So that's kind of nice. I mean, that's decent that they've included that with this battery, but keep in mind this charger is not going to be the best choice for charging a bigger battery pack. So if you're going to change up and get a bigger battery for this car, you're also going to want to get a new charger if you haven't already. Okay? That's just for those small batteries. Now you can get other ones of these. Obviously you can get Dynamite. I personally like the Venom ones. The Venom batteries, they make one at 2000 just like this, has a multi-plug on it, has all the different plug types, so you can run the EC3 plug with the Venom battery. And they're pretty inexpensive, $25, something like that. So that's a nice alternative if you don't want to change the plugs. That one is available. The only drawback with this plug is, I mean, the EC3 plug is actually not a bad plug. It's a fairly decent power handling. They're basically bullets inside of this plastic case. Bullet connections. 3.5 millimeter probably. And while they handle power very, very well, they are more difficult to solder and assemble than a Traxxas plug or a Dean's plug. The other drawback to these plugs, though proprietary to Horizon Hobbies products, Locy's, E-Flight, obviously Vaterra, ECX cars now also have the EC3. The other mainstream manufacturers of batteries haven't really caught on to the EC3. So that I see kind of as a drawback for now, just because there's not a lot of battery choice, and a lot of people, you're going to either have to put an EC3 on your new batteries, depending on which battery you buy, or you may just change the car to, a Traxxas plug. So, incidentally, if you're going to run the bigger battery, there is provisions for you to change the position of this battery strap. You can run this down the direction of your new battery through there, back underneath, and if I can get that through there. There we go. And then you can throw your new battery in. It's actually not too hard to get that battery in and out. That is kind of a nice feature. I understand why they haven't gone with a full-size battery in here. It's easy to get access to back here, but see, that's pretty clean. Changed up easy, and that battery's not going anywhere. You can tumble this thing anywhere and that's not going to come out. So pretty nice, pretty nice. Okay, let's cut here. I'm going to dismantle this cage. I've never done that before, so I'm not up on exactly what that entails. Let's pull this battery strap out of the way too. I'll get that out of the way. I'm going to look this over here for just a second. Looks to me, we got 2 on the top 2 on the front, 2 back there. Okay, so it looks like you got 2 screws here on the very top of the cage, ties into your shock towers. In the rear by the Vaterra, these number plates here, you've got a screw here and a screw here that ties into your battery tray, which is also tied into the tower. So that tray is going to want to stay in the car. Then you've got the 2 up in the nose. And from underneath, it looks like we've got here and here, 2 here and 2 here. These smaller indented screws. Looks like there's 4 underneath, and I'm thinking 2 up. No, that looks like it. So possibly 1 more here on the sides. I'm thinking maybe this one also. I'm not 100% sure. So I'm gonna cut. I'm gonna get my driver out and some bits, and I'm going to tear that cage off and have a look underneath. So I'll be back. Drivers are nice. I'm probably going to say that in almost every video. Okay, these screws, looks like from the back position, match the same length as the top 2. So be aware of that. The other 2 up farther are shorter, and then the nose are very long. What I recommend is just when you pull them out, keep them separated and just remember where you pulled them from. It's a good practice to get, a good habit to get into. And there's the cage off the car. All right, so we got underneath here. This is what I'm talking about, that little shift servo there, that servo horn. May not be centered. We're going to plug this in a minute and check that out just to make sure that it's correct. We're going to set those endpoints, and I'll show you how to do that. I'm noticing the Revo style cantilever suspension here with a push rod from the A-arm up to the smaller or shorter shocks that are mounted horizontally here. What's nice about this is that it's compact. It removes a lot of clutter, the need for a taller shock tower. It's going to stick up through that hood or stick out to the sides and have the shock going down. This is a little bit cleaner. It allows a lower profile nose of your body set. Some of the new touring cars I'm seeing are going this direction. Some of the 8-scale on-road stuff, off the DM1 for example, has this style suspension. Some don't like that. Some aren't too happy with that. For one, I don't know, that's not too bad. If anything, I'd say maybe a little bit lighter oil in here, and then you could reduce the preload just a little bit and make this, the rebound, the way it's set right now, it's not bad. If you lighten the oil though, you wouldn't have to run as much spring preload and make it a little bit softer, a little bit more supple. Overall, I don't know, that's not too bad. So I'd probably, if I get real messing with it one day, I'll probably do that just for fun, just for kicks. But looking through the system here, we've got a 15-turn motor, brush motor. Looks like they've wrapped a wire. That's kind of interesting. Not quite sure what that's for. Just got a wire wrapped around that. Noise reduction, I'm assuming. I don't know why you need that with a Spectrum radio, but whatever. It's cool. This is the waterproof. Got some silicone coating here on the receiver. You can't see that, I'm sorry about that. Got some silicone on the receiver, so we've got the output wires separated because this is the waterproof receiver. We've got a waterproof ESC here. This is a Taser, I think. Taser 12, yeah. This is the Taser 12 ESC. Now there's several modes to this ESC. It's a lot like a Traxxas XL5. It's got LiPo cutoff. It's got multiple modes. You've got sport mode with 100% forward, brakes, and then reverse, 100%. Then you've got forward only racing mode. You've got training mode, as well as a crawling mode. I'm interested to see if this thing is in crawling mode in this car. I would think it's not. But crawling mode basically is full throttle forward, and there's no brake system. It does give you some kind of a drag brake for forward when you're in crawling mode, but then if you tap reverse, it's instantly reverse. There's no braking sequence for that. So that'll be interesting to see. I have a hunch this is not in a crawler mode because it has a high range. This car is probably going to go in, high teens, maybe 20 miles an hour. So if you had a crawler mode, or if you had your buggy in crawler mode and you hit what would be the brakes, reverse, right? It's going to instantly go into reverse, and that's going to be interesting crashes, and I would think pretty hard on the drivetrain. So I'm betting this is in sport mode. That'll give you the brakes, then reverse with your trigger. I was doing that without the radio, but so you'll be full throttle, and then you'll hit the brakes, and then you go back to neutral, and then go back for reverse. Not as good for crawling, but overall, I think probably the best mode for what this car is going to be used for. But I'm kind of liking this car. Let's set the throttle on this thing. I'm going to pause here. I'm going to put the batteries in our remote, and I'm going to walk us through setting the shifting servo up so we don't burn that out on the trail. To do that, I'm going to go get my stand, and we'll get this thing in the air. Okay, in the instruction kit here, and that's something else I want to talk about in a minute. They give you the basic tool set. We've got a fairly nice wrench. This one's actually labeled 7mm, 8, 5, and 5.5. Very nice. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that's a pretty nice, for one of those cheap wrenches, that's probably the nicest one I've ever seen. Now keep in mind, I'm going to continue talking while I'm loading these in. I probably should have done that before I brought you back in. Some of the complaints that I've heard, just from the several of these that I've had leave, people have told me that the steering servo is pretty slow, pretty weak. They're not real crazy about that steering servo. Something to just bear in mind. Maybe, shortly you might want to do an upgrade on that. Put something a little faster, a little bit more torque. I tell you something else I'd probably do is because you've got a lot of servos running on this. You got the shifting servo. I put a good steering servo in this. I'd probably wire in a separate BEC and just tuck it down in here, like one of those Novaks or a Castle. A lot more power going to the servos that way. Let's go ahead and turn this thing on. See what we get here. Let's check our trims here. You know what? I'm going to pull this little cover off the radio there. I am seeing that the trims, now this is a later unit. It's later in their serial number. Like I said, I just got this yesterday. The trims on this radio are actually set pretty well. We're looking over here at the auxiliary channels at these two, and they're pretty low on the throw rates there. I'd say they've got this thing pretty well set. Okay, well, I'm going to pause here. I'm going to put it back together now that we've taken a close look under the hood, and we'll talk about what we think of it overall. Okay, I'm screwing this thing back together. Something that I didn't mention that I missed when I was talking about this car, it's got universal front drive shafts already installed. I was kind of expecting, you know, dog bone cup joints, but this has a pretty nice universal set in it. It doesn't seem to have a ton of steering. There might be some modifications you could do to improve that, but I don't know that that's really going to affect you. I mean, like I said, this isn't really a comp crawler, so I don't know if that's going to be all that important to you. Something that I wanted to mention, when you're screwing this thing back together, these screws here, start here. I found it pretty easy. There's some channels that this chassis sits down inside of the cage. Make sure this is snug down inside, then you can run these screws in, and then it's pretty solid. You can get the rest of these after that. So just something to be aware of when you're putting this thing back together. I'm going to say this. There's not a lot to taking this apart. The only drawback that I can see that I really feel is going to become obvious is that people, and I know because it's not really very simple, like body clips. I mean, let's face it, how many cars actually get, you know, cleaned properly and maintained really well, and they have body clips. It's easy to get access to clean the car and to do maintenance on the car, pull the motor out, and that sort of thing. I predict a lot of these motors get neglected to the point that they burn out just because it's not so terribly easy to get in here and get the motor out of there. That I'm just betting that a lot of maintenance for this car is skipped because this isn't the easiest vehicle to get into. Not that that's bad. I mean, you want to have this cage structure and everything. But I'm just predicting that a lot of people skip the maintenance on these things. So if you're looking at maybe buying a used twin hammers, expect it to never have been cleaned or maintained to the best. Let's say that. Pretty much expect to be putting a motor in it pretty soon if it doesn't need one already. That sort of thing is all I'm saying. So, something to think about. So there it is. There's twin hammers. That's my thoughts on this. As I look at this thing, I like it. I really do. I think this thing is going to be incredible fun. So we'll probably put this thing through some tests and see what we think of it after some runs. Expect that probably pretty soon. I'm going to see if I can't get this thing out there at least by next weekend and get some runs on it, get these tires dirty. So anyway, thanks for watching my review, the Twin Hammers Buggy, and we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks.